Jon Favreau has already begun erasing every trace of the Star Wars sequels from Star Wars. In a recent interview, Jon Favreau has completely diminished any importance the sequel trilogy has when it comes to Star Wars. And I'm going to show you the interview in just a second, but first I need to get some things out of the way so you can truly understand what this means going forward. Jon Favreau has to be very politically correct. He's still working at Lucasfilm. He's partnered with them. He has these projects in the works. So he has to be very careful about what he says, because when you are in these positions, you have to make sure you don't burn bridges. And ultimately, you don't want to offend certain people. Kathleen Kennedy, for example, the current president over at Lucasfilm, she might be a lovely lady. She might be a very nice person, right? A very nice person that has made some very shitty movies. And that's fine. You know, that's fine. She had some ideas for these Star Wars sequel movies, and they didn't pan out. And maybe she loves them, but ultimately, nobody else does. And it's very clear in this interview, and you'll see, Jon Favreau doesn't like them. Nobody likes them. And more importantly, the fans, the Star Wars fans, don't like those movies. But the biggest takeaway I want you to get from this video, from this interview I'm about to show you, is that it is very clear that Jon Favreau is erasing any trace of the sequel stench from Star Wars. But it's just not this interview that proves that Jon Favreau is erasing the sequels. What I'm going to show you after the interview proves that Jon Favreau is distancing Star Wars from those shitty sequel movies. And it's something that is being shown to us in Season 3 of The Mandalorian. And after the interview, I'm going to show you guys. So this is an interview Jon Favreau had with Movie TV.
Is it a challenge also as a storyteller to sort of knowing where this universe, this galaxy of Star Wars is like 20, 25 years down the road in terms of the sequel trilogy and having to match up with that?
Yeah, it's a little closer than that now. Now we've been on the air a little bit. But yeah, there's you know, it's interesting because you know what's come before, and then in our time period there's also been extended universe fiction. There's characters that have been slowly introduced in the Clone Wars, like Thrawn. So there's a lot of stuff that's in canon, like canon proper, but I think there's different tiers of things that we really look to the fans of seeing what they embrace too. So it's not like a science. There's definitely a conversation that's going on.
So very important, just real quick, what he just said. Completely, as you can tell, completely diminished the sequel's importance whatsoever, and instead embraces what was already there before. Legends material. And more importantly, embraces what fans respect when it comes to Star Wars history.
And then also what happens after the sequel trilogy, because the sequel trilogy only takes place over the course of a few years, and it's something that, you know, it's a big thing on the screen and it's very eventful, but it is a very it is a relatively brief moment in history over the course of the thousands of years that Star Wars takes place.
Diminishes it completely. It only took place within the course of 2 years. Never once says that it's good or that it's important or means anything, because it really doesn't.
And so what happens after it is interesting too, and I know that there's some discussion and exploration going on about what happens after it. So I think that there are certain markers that we have. It's almost like studying ancient history, where you kind of know a few things that happened, but there's a lot of murkiness in between, and we just don't have archaeological evidence in the real world to know exactly what happened, and so we kind of connect the dots. And if you look at somebody like George R.R. Martin and his novels, it's really interesting to see how he treats these things, because he really does treat it like history. Sometimes you have stories told from different perspectives. Sometimes you have flawed storytellers. Sometimes you have different versions. And of course you have different media, right? You have the books and you have the shows. And that interplay and that level of sophistication, and I think also having somebody like one author of it really adds to the complexity that you can have. And so how do we emulate that with the teams that we have both at Lucasfilm, ILM, and on the team of our shows? How do we all work together and try to formulate that kind of consistency?
You do so by getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't understand Star Wars. She doesn't get it. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni do. Never once in this interview does Jon Favreau say that the sequels are any good or that they mean anything. With that being said, there's something else that was shown to us in The Mandalorian that shows you how he has already started erasing any trace of the sequels from Star Wars. This is the intro that is shown to us in every Star Wars show or movie since Lucasfilm was purchased by Disney. We see the helmets of Vader, Kylo Ren, right? First Order Stormtroopers. Here is the new intro in The Mandalorian Season 3. And excuse the shitty quality. What's missing from it? Every sequel helmet. Kylo Ren is missing from it. BB-8 is missing from it. First Order Stormtroopers are missing. Why? Because Jon Favreau and the boys over at The Mandalorian want you to forget the sequels even happened. And you should forget. You should forget they ever existed. And in fact, here's an idea for Disney. Since they like making good material legends, not canon anymore, right? How about you make the Star Wars sequels legends? And we'll all pretend like they didn't happen. Just like my boy here, the future president of Lucasfilm. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments. And like always, don't forget to subscribe. Sensational.